the show for today. We're talking to Dr. LMadu, and the topic is commercial and business investments in Africa. And in a real sense, Dr. LMadu, I think, as we've said earlier, that Africa is again open for business. Let's continue that.
Yeah, and you know, if you want to do business in Africa, then you say, well, what am I going to invest in? What do they have? Of course, you have oil and gas, you know, in Nigeria, in Angola, Congo, Republic of the Congo, in Brazzaville, in Gabon, you know, in Cape Verde, Sao Tome, Equatorial Guinea. They all have oil. You go to Niger, they have uranium in Niger. They have uranium in Gabon, and part of Chad. You know, then in agricultural products, you know, there's a lot of agriculture, you know, to import and export. Then you have the food processing, and a lot of that in Africa. You have a lot of what do I call it? Technical, you know, computers, etc., etc. These are some of the things you can invest in. You know, then once you say, well, how do I get there? And if I get there, how do I start? You know, the first thing is make sure if you want to go to Africa, number one, you have to have contacts. You know, you have to have contacts. Find some reliable organizations or individuals with access to power in Africa to guide you on where to go to. You know, secondly, you know, you have an agent. You know, when you do that, you can find an agent. Say, okay, I want you to be an agent in this particular country, you know, to help me navigate.
Okay.
And of course, you know that most of the economy in Africa is mixed economy, you know, what we call mixed economy, some socialized, some capitalist, you know, kind of mixed. And about 80% is government control. At times 90% is government control. So you have to deal with the government in order to do business.
In respect.
Exactly.
In order to do business
in Africa, you have to deal with the government. So you have
no private enterprise to the extent that the government is not involved.
That's correct. So you have to have an agent who has some contacts and connections to those who empower in order to be successful in doing business in Africa. You know, so when you have these things, then the next question is this: having done this, what is the cultural listen? Every system, every country has its own cultural, you know, what you call business culture. There's a business culture in the United States. There's European business culture. There's Chinese business culture. So you have to be able to understand this culture now to do business. For example, in Africa, in some countries, you can't use your left hand to shake somebody's hand or eat. It's regarded as an insult. Now, in most of the countries in Africa, when you go to do business, you have to at least sit down with those, you know, and talk. You know, they might spend 1 hour asking you about your grandmother, your grandfather, your sisters, your brothers, family, and all that. So you have to be patient and go exactly. Just go along with it. Go along with it. Don't say, well, I'm getting tired, I have to go. No, that would be regarded as an insult, because what is happening when they're talking to you is they're checking you out. They want to see if you can be somebody compatible for them to do business with. Because a lot of business in Africa, like its politics, is personalized. It's relational. It's not because you know, you have billions of dollars. If they don't like you, well, they don't want to do business with you, period. Okay. So that time they are talking to you, asking all these questions, is trying to find out exactly whom you are and if you will be trustworthy for them to do business with. Because you have to understand, even today, a lot of business persons in Africa don't even sign contract with people to do business. It's just they know you. You know, so this
it's on a personal, it's on a personal basis.
Exactly.
A contractual basis.
Exactly. So that's very, very important. Now there's something called the 3 P's of doing business in Africa. One is pensiveness. You know, that's common sense. You know, number 2 is patience. You know, you have to have patience in order to be able to be successful in anything you do. That's number 2. Number 3 is perseverance. You have to persevere because there are a lot of obstacles, a lot of things that you might get
throw you off track very easily.
You might get frustrated with. For example, there's something called African time. You know, and most people understand it. They might say, okay, the meeting is at 3 o'clock, but then you know, they will just come to meet you by 6 o'clock. It's fine with them.
That's African time.
Exactly. So you have to understand that. You don't get angry. Say, well, I'll be here since 3 o'clock. You wasted my time. You don't go that way. You just, you know, relax and sit down and just talk as if nothing happened. And with time, you get used to it. You know, that's part of the business culture. And so you have to understand that in order to be successful in doing business there. Now, somebody says, well, I'm going to Africa to do business. Now, what is the pros? What are the pros? What am I getting? Fine, Africa is almost about 1 billion people in Africa. So that's a very huge market
it really
there.
is.
Exactly. That's 1 billion people in Africa. That's a very huge market. So that's an advantage. Two, the economy of the whole continent is about 1.3 trillion US dollars. So that's a lot of money, you know, there to spend, buying power and all this. So that's a very big advantage of doing business.
Big market.
Exactly. And out of this 1.3 billion, South Africa accounts for about 40%, you know, of all the businesses done in Africa. So what you call sub-Saharan Africa, so to speak. That's about 40%. Now, having said that, you know, why is it that a lot of African businesses, you know, people go to Africa and then they don't succeed? What are the obstacles? What are the obstacles to doing business? Number one is corruption.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to.
We've dealt with that.
Exactly. You have to pay people and all this and that. In fact, that's why in this country you have what they call the Foreign, you know, Corrupt Practices Act that, you know, forbids American businesses from giving bribes to do business overseas. But what happened now is that the Justice Department is turning a blind eye to that law because American businesses are complaining. They say, well, now the Chinese, the French, the British are beating us in business because they don't care about that. They do, you know,
they do what
exactly what they need to do and get the business, and we are sitting here watching them getting all the business, and we can't because we are forbidden from even giving $1. So with that, you know, the Justice Department say, okay, just, you know, go on as far as you don't
they're
get
looking the other way in
looking the other way, exactly, so they can get part of the business. Number two is absence of data. That's very important, you know. You can go to an office now, ask for data of 2010. What you get is the data of 2000 or 1999.
So nothing is updated.
Exactly.
Information in reference to.
That's correct, and that's very, very critical.
Okay, Dr. Madu, what we'll do, we'll take our second commercial break, after which we'll come back and we'll allow you to continue giving us, excuse me, what I consider to be essential information in terms of dealing with this whole idea of an open business Africa. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial.